Hello everyone, Alexander Flores here, and welcome to episode 18 of Creating a Software Company. In this video, we're going to give our users the ability to delete any social profiles that they have connected. In this exact case, it's just going to be for Instagram profiles. We're also going to be fixing a bug that I had in the last video. So currently, if we're on our dashboard and we're at social profiles, we see that we are performing a GET request to display the image right here of all of our social profiles. We see this right here. Now I want the users to be able to delete these by hovering over them and then clicking on a trash can icon that's near the top right. So first I'm going to edit the HTML and the CSS. So I have a span here, and then we also need to know which profile to actually delete. So we can say the ID equals profile social profile ID. And this is passed in, and we can confirm that from printing out this right here. So this is returned in the data variable from this GET request right here, and then we can go ahead and get access to it. So let's save this and let's refresh. So we see the social profile ID is there, and then if I select this and we go to the parent, we see the ID is now as an attribute right there. We also see the trash can right here, but we're going to make it to the top right of the image right now. So we're importing social profiles.css. So let's go ahead and open up that file. And we're giving each social profile the class of social profile. So we're going to go ahead and target that class. We're going to specify its height is 150 pixels and its width is 150 pixels. And then we also want to set its position to relative. Then we're going to target the delete class inside, and we're going to set a font size of 20 pixels and a position of absolute. Also going to set top to 3 pixels and right to 3 pixels. Let's go ahead and save this. And now we see it's at the top right. Now let's go ahead and say display none. We also want to listen to whenever this is being hovered, and then target delete, and then display block. This way this is only visible whenever you're hovering over the profile picture, just like this. Now if we have multiple profile pictures, it'll only display the trash can for the one that we're hovering over. So if you see here, it'll now only display the one that we're hovering over, which is exactly the functionality we want. I also want these to be side by side, so we're going to use CSS grid. We're going to target the ID of social profiles, which is the container. We're going to display grid. We're going to say grid template columns as autofill, and then 150 pixels. And then we could say grid column gap, or we could just say grid gap of 15 pixels. Now we have this, we can hover over them and we see the trash can icon. Now I want to make it so whenever we're hovering over this, we have a pointer as a cursor. So here we go right here. When we're hovering over the trash can icon, it now is more apparent that we can actually click on it. So I'm going to get rid of the second profile because it's just for an example. Now I want to listen for whenever we're clicking on that. So because it's loaded in dynamically, we have to listen to clicks like this. Documents.on, click, and then social profile, delete. Now we need to get the ID from the parent. This.closest, social profile, attribute ID. And then let's go ahead and simply log that to the console. And so whenever I click on this, we see that we are printing out the social profile ID. When I click anywhere else, it doesn't actually happen. Alternatively, we can always use the parent call, which in this exact case is probably better. Now we want to go ahead and use Ajax to say the URL will be something we'll pass in a few moments, and then the method will be delete, and async will be true. Then we have the callback functions. If there's an error, we're simply just going to log that to the console. And for now, we're simply going to log the results if there's no error as well. Now this is going to be /social-profile. And then we want to pass in the ID at the end. So on the back end of our Node.js server, we'll be listening for this. Let's go ahead and save this and see if it works. Okay, so I click on the trash can. We get a 404 error, which is expected. However, on the console, we do see that we are sending a delete request to social profile and then our social profile ID. So that's expected. Now let's go to the back end of our Node.js server and actually write that functionality. So now under social profiles, we're going to say router.delete social profile ID. We want to make sure this is an async function because we're going to basically just copy this functionality and paste it right here. And so this is going to be a delete request. We're going to authenticate the same way. We don't need a sub. That was only used in case the ID was all and we're trying to get all the social profiles for an exact user. However, in this exact case, we just need the ID. And then handling the response can be the same. That's fine. We're authenticating the same way. And let's go ahead and save this. Now, right now, this isn't actually going to do anything because we haven't wrote this endpoint right here. So let's go ahead and do that as a function and then add it to our Lambda console. So we'll make a new folder called delete. So I enter some basic information, and then let's create an index.js file. And let's start off by simply copying everything that's in our previous file, then we'll make edits from there. So I'm gonna go through and just delete a lot of stuff that I know that we don't need. Okay, then I'm going to install AWS SDK. We're going to remove this before we actually upload it to Lambda because it's not needed on Lambda. Here we're gonna specify the key inside the params object like that. We don't really need to have a data variable. We can actually just return whatever happens here. And then because we're only using this once, we can go ahead and put this right here. All right, so this is much cleaner. Let's go ahead and uncomment this code. We don't need this, we don't need a sub. And the ID we want to make sure is the same ID that we have right here, which would be probably easier to copy from over here. Okay, so we copied that ID. We're gonna paste it right in here. Okay, so AWS was done installing. Let's try this out. Okay, I just realized I made a pretty simple mistake. This should be delete. Let's save this and let's try again. So we get nothing back, which is expected. And if we go over to our database, here's our user. If we refresh, we see that it is actually deleted. So I'm going to go ahead and make a new user. So that's expected behavior currently. Let's authenticate again. And now we see that we have a user again. Let's refresh our table and we should see the new user is now inserted right here. So now we're going to go ahead and upload this to a new Lambda function. So because AWS SDK is not needed on Lambda, I'm going to go ahead and remove it. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and remove all those things right there. Then I'm going to send the contents of our file to a zip, and then I'm going to go ahead and upload that. So we have to create a function. And when creating a function, we have to specify a role. In this exact case, we need access to delete item. So I'm going to go ahead and create that role first. I'm going to create a policy. So the service we're going to be using is DynamoDB. And then we want write actions, and we want to be able to delete an item. Then we need to specify which table we want to be editing. So we want to select our table here and go to overview, and then copy the ARN, and then paste that in right here. It should autofill this information. Then we click add, and then review policy. So we'll name this social-delete social profiles, and then create the policy. Now that we have the policy created, we want to attach it to a role. So I'm going to click on create new role in a new tab. We want to select Lambda. Then I'm going to go to customer managed, and we want to find two roles. The first one is to be able to write to CloudWatch logs so we can check our logs. And then the second one is right here, the policy I just created, which is to be able to delete things from the social profiles table. Now that we have those two, let's review the policy. And the role name will be social-delete social profile with no description, and let's create. Now that this is created, when we go to create our function in Lambda, we can actually use that role. So we'll name it social-delete social profile, Node.js 8.10, and then we'll select the role that we just created. And this is purposely named the same just to make it consistent. Then let's create the function. Now we can go ahead and upload our code from a zip file. We want to select the zip that we made beforehand. And then there's a couple things I like to change just as personal preferences. The company can be social dash, and then the timeout will be 5 seconds. Now let's go ahead and save this. Okay, now that this is saved, let's go to API Gateway and let's go ahead and create a new method. So we already have a GET request. Let's listen to delete requests. We can now select our Lambda function, which is this one right here. Click save. We have to accept some new permission. That's perfectly fine. Okay, now let's go into method request. And first let's set our authorization to our Cognito user pool, because we certainly don't want people accessing this without being authorized. Then we want to create some query string parameters, and we will just have one, which is ID, and we will set it to required. Then let's go over to integration requests and body mapping templates. Create a new template called application/JSON. And I'm simply going to copy this from our GET request. So let's copy this here and then paste it in here. And we want to get rid of sub. And this will allow us to have access to the ID from our URL parameters in our events in Lambda. So let's save this. Let's go back and then set some response headers. So access control allow origin. Save that, and then we need to apply a value to that, which will be a star. This is all just standard stuff compared to what we were doing a couple of videos ago. Now that we have this, let's go ahead and deploy our API to the development stage. Click on deploy, and then let's go over to our front end and actually try and call this. Okay, I just realized I messed up. This should be commented out because that is actually in the Lambda function right now. So I'm going to save this and fix that real quick. Okay, so now whenever we click on this, we are calling this right here. We are sending a delete request. And then on Node.js, we are listening for that. And then we are also sending a delete request. Then what we want to do is once we've gotten that information, we want to basically refresh this. So I'm going to take this right here. I'm going to put it into a function. Get social profiles. And then we're going to call get social profiles right here, and then also right after we log the result. Let's save that. Let's refresh. Okay, so now that we're here, we see our current social profile. Let's go ahead and click on delete. And then it refreshed because we see we have a GET request to social profile all and nothing was displayed. If we check our database and we refresh, we see there's nothing in here. And then also if we refresh here, of course, we'll see no social profile. So now our user has access to actually deleting these. I probably do want to add a pop-up that asks them if they're sure if they want to delete them, but I'll do that off camera. Now I want to briefly mention an error I had in the last video. So I was able to access the dashboard even though the server restarted. That was due to an error on me checking if the user was logged in or not incorrectly. So beforehand I had this commented out actually. And then if we go to our util, I've updated this. So we're now able to get a session, which is through a couple methods right here. So it gets the current session, and then we check if that session is valid through that. Through get session.is valid. And if so, then we're going to go ahead and render wherever they're trying to go. The other way I was doing it with authenticate wasn't actually working. The other way I was doing it with a get session wasn't correctly working. And so that was a bug I just wanted to correct for you guys who are following along. But that's pretty much it for this video. Thank you for watching.